courtroom was silent in the way only power can create. Not peaceful silence, but the kind that presses against your chest, where every cough feels illegal and every eye is locked forward. Cameras blinked red, quietly recording, hungry for drama. Then it happened. A laugh, sharp and careless, cut through the room. The TikTok influencer leaned back, smirked, and waved a hand as if dismissing furniture. "Old man," he said. Just like that, the word didn't echo, but it spread. Gasps moved through the benches and a ripple of disbelief. A few heads snapped toward the judge, others toward the influencer, as if unsure where the damage had landed. Because it wasn't just an insult aimed at a person. It was an insult aimed at age, service, and the idea that respect still mattered anywhere at all. Judge Frank Caprio didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes calm, as though the insult had passed through him without leaving a mark. That stillness was louder than shouting. Across from him, the influencer's confidence swelled. Mistaking silence for weakness, mistaking restraint for surrender, every generation watching would soon recognize. This instant as a line crossed that could never be uncrossed again. The room held its breath. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, sensing something irreversible unfolding. In that suspended moment, no one yet understood the truth. No one realized they were seconds away from witnessing one of the most unforgettable courtroom moments in modern internet history. Outside that small courtroom, the world had already been rewired by the glow of a phone screen. Respect wasn't earned. Anymore it was measured in followers, likes, and the speed of outrage. 2 millions raised on viral justice. Authority was just another backdrop for entertainment. Judges became memes, court cases became trends, and what once demanded reverence now fed algorithms. But that morning, something shifted. The insult wasn't just about aged. It was a symbol. A clash between generations, between worlds that no longer understood each other. On one side stood viral fame, restless, impulsive, always hungry for attention. On the other stood earned authority, steady, slow, built on decades of quiet service. This wasn't just an outburst. It was a line drawn between mockery and dignity, performance and principle. The influencer had spent years mastering the art of being seen. Cameras, after all, were safe. They loved chaos, but never punished it. Yet in this room, those same lenses became witnesses to something deeper. TikTok culture had blurred the difference between spectacle and consequence, between fame and accountability. Every smirk, every dismissive shrug, was broadcast proof of a generation convinced that apology was optional. But what makes this moment unforgettable isn't the arrogance, it's the silence that followed it. Because Judge Caprio didn't take the bait. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't respond with anger or power. He simply watched. And that calm terrified everyone more than shouting ever could. The air grew heavier with every second he refused to react. Viewers around the world would soon feel that same tension, an ancient kind of authority meeting the modern hunger for spectacle. This wasn't just disrespect, it was a test. A test of patience, a principle of whether dignity could still stand firm in a world ruled by noise. And what happened next would change how millions saw power itself. By the time the influencer walked into that courtroom, they'd already learned the most dangerous lesson of the internet. Attention feels like immunity. Fame didn't arrive slowly. It exploded overnight, one viral clip turning a nobody into a brand, a username into a business. Millions followed. Not because of wisdom or skill, but because the algorithm rewarded shock, disrespect, and nerve. Each view felt like permission. With every surge of engagement, consequence faded further away. When pranks crossed lines, they were called content. When authority figures were mocked, it was framed as comedy. Teachers, police, officials, any symbol of structure became a prop for laughs. And when backlash came, it never lasted. A half-smile apology video, a carefully worded caption, and sponsors calmed down. The numbers kept climbing. Accountability became temporary, optional, forgettable. What formed beneath that success was not confidence, but dependency. Attention became oxygen. Silence became threat. The influencer learned to escalate, to push further each time. mistaking virality for invincibility. If millions were watching, how wrong could they be? Clicks became proof of worth. Views replaced credibility. Popularity masqueraded as truth. Over time, something subtle broke. Boundaries stopped registering. Real people blurred into comment sections. Every space felt like a stage, every interaction like a performance waiting to be clipped and uploaded. Consequences belonged to other people. Offline people. People without platforms. The camera had always protected them before. Friends warned them they were pushing too far. But warnings sounded like jealousy when success was loud. Management teams focused on growth, not grounding. Contracts rewarded attention, not maturity. Every system around them reinforced the same message. Keep going, keep provoking, keep winning. The influencer learned to read analytics better than emotions, metrics better than people. Real-world rules felt outdated, designed for those without reach. In their mind, institutions survived because audiences allowed them to. Authority was just another costume. Costumes could be mocked. By the time the court date arrived, the influencer treated it like content scheduling. Outfit chosen for reaction. Expression practiced in mirrors. They expected tension, expected confrontation, expected a clip worth millions of views. What they didn't expect was gravity. The room did not bend to the camera. The walls did not care about followers. There were no jump cuts, no filters, no retakes. Just time, consequences, and a man who had seen arrogance before. It was the first environment that refused to perform back. And that refusal unsettled them more than any online backlash ever had. They couldn't swipe away discomfort here. So they entered the courtroom the same way they entered every space swagger first, awareness last. The smirk wasn't bravery. It was habit. The eye roll wasn't defiance. It was reflex. They scanned the room not for meaning but for angles, for reactions, for moments that might trend. What they couldn't read was the silence. What they couldn't calculate was restraint. For the first time, there was no delete button. No comments to drown out discomfort. No audience to save them. Before the cameras, before the fame, before his name became a symbol of fairness, Frank Caprio was just a boy from Federal Hill, the son of Italian immigrants who arrived in America with little more than faith, grit, and a belief in decency. His father worked with his hands, a milkman who rose before dawn. His mother kept the home together with quiet strength. From them, young Frank learned the rhythm of humility, that dignity wasn't inherited, it was practiced daily. He grew up watching people who never had enough, yet always shared what little they did. It taught him that kindness isn't weakness, it's survival. Those lessons would follow him into adulthood, into law school nights paid for by part-time jobs, into a life spent listening before judging. When he finally put on the robe, it didn't represent power to him. It represented responsibility. Decades passed. And while politicians chased cameras, Judge Caprio earned something rarer: trust. His courtroom became known not for fear, but for understanding. He never confused firmness with cruelty. He believed that justice could correct without humiliating, that mercy could coexist with accountability. Every person who stood before him, from single mothers to struggling immigrants, met not a machine of the law, but a man who remembered where he came from. His compassion didn't make him soft. It made him precise. He knew what it meant to struggle, and he understood that justice without empathy is just punishment wearing a suit. Over the years, his measured voice became a kind of moral metronome for the community. Steady, calm, impossible to rattle. He'd faced anger, arrogance, and despair from the bench, yet never once lost his composure. His power wasn't in volume. It was in silence, in presence. In the quiet certainty that truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. Generations grew to admire him. Parents watched his cases with their children, pointing to his patience as proof that decency still had a place in the world. Even online, where noise usually wins, clips of his kindness cut through the chaos. Moments of simple humanity that reminded people of what authority could look like when guided by conscience. In. People saw not a judge, but the version of America they wanted to believe in. A place where fairness still mattered, where the law still had a heart. And yet, despite his reach, Caprio never played for the camera. Every word, every pause, every decision came from the same source, a lifelong promise to serve, not to perform. The contrast between him and the influencer couldn't be sharper. One man had built his reputation over half a century, brick by brick, case by case. The other had built his over 15 seconds, click by click, clip by clip. One sought validation. The other earned respect. One chased fame. The other embodied legacy, as the influencer's smirk met Caprio's calm. Two worlds collided, one built on noise, the other on silence. The courtroom air tightened, carrying the weight of decades of discipline against the recklessness of instant gratification. And now, those two worlds were about to collide. The TikToker had barely settled into the courtroom chair when the next wave of arrogance began. A scoff here, a whispered laugh there, eyes rolling with practiced disdain. Every movement broadcasted confidence. Every smirk a silent claim that the room belonged to them. Spectators exchanged uneasy glances. The bailiff shifted in place, jaw tight, fingers brushing the edge of the desk as if ready to intervene. The atmosphere grew taut, the air thick with anticipation, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Judge Caprio didn't react. Not a flicker of irritation, not a twitch of impatience. His hands remained folded, his eyes steady, absorbing each gesture without judgment or interruption. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't avoidance. It was control, the kind that comes from decades of witnessing human folly. The kind that lets arrogance meet a wall of quiet strength. The TikToker's confidence, usually unshakable, began to waver. The smirk faltered for a fraction of a second, unnoticed by most but palpable to anyone attuned to human rhythm. Laughter became sharper, more forced. As if trying to fill a void they suddenly realized wasn't theirs to fill. The room's tension became almost audible, collective holding of breath that signaled the shift from performance to confrontation. Spectators leaned forward, unable to look away. Even the media cameras seemed to pause, capturing not a viral moment but the unfolding of an invisible battle between restraint and impulsivity. Each second stretched longer than the last. Each glance between the two figures weighted with implication. The court, usually a place of procedure, felt transformed into a stage where every move carried meaning far beyond the walls. It was clear the TikToker was testing limits they had never truly known. This was no trending challenge, no fleeting viral clip to edit and replay. This was reality immediate, unfiltered, and impossible to control with a caption or a filter. And while the influencer searched for dominance, the judge remained a still point, an unmovable presence. Silently questioning who held real authority, the room's tension was unbearable. Each heartbeat syncing with the unfolding drama. A whisper of a pause, a shift in posture. The tightening of a hand on the bench, signals unnoticed by most but critical in the silent war playing out before hundreds of eyes. Then Judge Caprio leaned forward and everything changed. Judge Caprio's eyes, calm and steady, met the TikTokers for the first time with deliberate intention. The room, already taut with tension, seemed to lean in, waiting for the inevitable eruption. But he did not shout. He did not scold. He did not seize the moment for dramatic rebuke. Instead, he spoke slowly, each word deliberate. Carrying a weight that no viral clip could manufacture. Respect, he began, voice measured, is not something you demand with a smirk. It is something you earn, through patience, through service, and through the way you treat others when no one is watching. The statement hung in the air like a bell tolling, not judgment, but truth. The TikToker's confidence wavered. A flicker of uncertainty passed across their face, practiced in the language of restraint. Caprio continued, outlining a perspective shaped by decades rather than seconds. Age is not a weakness. Experience is not a liability. Service is not optional. What you see as irrelevant or old-fashioned has been forged in lives dedicated to justice, to fairness, to the community that sustains us all. His voice never rose. The room's attention did. Cameras captured not theatrics, but a palpable shift in understanding. Spectators leaned forward, breath held. Even those who had come for spectacle felt the gravity of words shaped by wisdom rather than ego. He paused, letting silence carry the weight. The TikToker, accustomed to dominating spaces with sound, gestures, and performative energy, found the stillness disorienting. A nervous glance to their phone betrayed the moment. No edits, no cuts, no retakes. The authority in front of them required presence, not performance. Caprio's calm, unwavering gaze became a mirror. Reflecting every lapse in humility the influencer had cultivated online. True power, he said, is measured not by the reactions you provoke, but by the integrity you maintain in the face of provocation. Strength is restraint. Authority is quiet. Confidence is earned, not manufactured for likes or views. Another pause. A breath. Every word landing precisely where it needed to. The audience, once primed for entertainment, found themselves in awe of the quiet force commanding the room, the TikToker's smirk. So natural, under the glare of cameras and followers, faded entirely. Attempts at sarcastic gestures, subtle mutters, and sideways glances were meaningless. The court, the spectators, the very air seemed to confirm influence built on fleeting attention had no foundation here. The contrast between manufactured bravado and lived integrity had never been clearer. Caprio then reframed the insult itself, without ever naming it directly. Calling someone old, he said softly, might seem clever if you think age defines value. But age carries lessons that no clip or trend can replicate. Experience, patience, and commitments, these are what shape judgment. And judgment, exercised with care, commands respect in ways a viral moment never could. The TikToker's eyes widened, the realization dawning that what they had considered a performance was now a lesson in consequence. Silence stretched. Cameras recorded every micro-expression, every flicker of comprehension. Spectators murmured softly, recognizing a shift that was more than viral spectacle. It was the embodiment of moral authority. The TikToker's habitual tactics, the same ones that had won attention countless times before, were ineffective here. For the first time, influence collided with wisdom and found itself unarmed. Caprio spoke one final time. Voice low, steady, almost conversational, yet impossible to ignore. Authority is not the volume of your voice. It is the patience of your actions. It is the consistency of your character. What you seek in followers, what you crave in attention, cannot substitute for the trust and respect earned over a lifetime. And no fleeting moment of mockery can diminish that. The TikToker's posture collapsed subtly. There was no rage, no melodrama, no villainous posturing left to cling to. Their energy had been reduced to its essence, smallness. Not evil, not malicious, not criminal, merely untested, unseasoned. Unprepared for a world that measures substance over spectacle. Every practiced gesture, every smirk, every viral strategy had failed. Caprio's calm, unwavering authority had not humiliated, it had illuminated. And in that illumination, the gap between the fleeting fame of a TikTok clip and the enduring respect of a life lived in service became undeniable. The audience, both inside the courtroom and now millions watching, witnessed the quiet dismantling of arrogance, the subtle assertion of dignity over ego, and the powerful demonstration that restraint often speaks louder than provocation. For the first time in their public life, the influencer faced the full weight of consequences that could not be muted, edited, or deleted. The lesson was complete. Viral fame is transient. Integrity endures. And as the TikToker shrank into the realization of their own smallness, the room exhaled collectively, knowing that the true shock was only beginning. But the real shock didn't happen in the courtroom. It happened online. Within hours, the courtroom moment that had begun as a minor disruption became a digital wildfire. Clips of the TikToker calling Judge Caprio an old man and the judges measured. Calm response flooded social media platforms. Hashtags sprouted like wildfire. Hashtag respect matters. Hashtag Caprio.com. Hashtag dignity wins. Millions engaged, some cheering, some outraged, some incredulous, but no one could scroll past without pausing. Every share, every comment, every reaction became part of a collective reckoning about what authority and respect truly meant in an age of instant fame. Commentators, from legal analysts to talk show hosts, dissected the moment with reverence. They praised Caprio's restraint, marveling at the way he had turned provocation into a teaching moment. "This is what authority looks like when it's guided by wisdom, not ego," one anchor remarked. Parents shared the clip with their children, framing it as a lesson in humility, patience, and the quiet power of experience. Educators posted it as an example of moral clarity, emphasizing that life's most important lessons are not found in trends, but in character. Even casual social media users, many of whom rarely paused to reflect on anything beyond the next viral joke, found themselves reconsidering the fleeting value of clout. Meanwhile, the influencer's digital empire began to wobble. Brand deals that had once flowed easily were paused or canceled. Agencies realized that while audiences loved controversy, the lesson Caprio embodied made their stars' antics appear shallow, ungrounded, and suddenly risky. The smirk that had once commanded likes now looked brash, ill-prepared, and untested in the face of real authority. Followers debated, some defending the influencer, but the prevailing sentiment was clear: charisma cannot replace substance, and viral fame has limits when measured against integrity. In stark contrast, Judge Caprio's reputation soared beyond local admiration. Videos of his calm, instructive response circulated globally. Across continents, viewers lauded a man who didn't need spectacle to command attention. News outlets in multiple countries highlighted his philosophy that leadership, respect, and justice are cultivated over a lifetime, not manufactured in 15-second clips. Social media commentators created mashups and reaction videos, each iteration reinforcing the same idea: the enduring strength of quiet authority. The incident rippled beyond the confines of the courtroom and the screens that streamed it. Conversations ignited about the value of respect, the consequences of entitlement, and the weight of character and leadership. For some, it prompted reflection on their own interactions online. For others, it became a touchstone in discussions about generational divides, fame, and morality. A cultural reset was quietly unfolding, a reminder that authority, discipline, and human decency still mattered, even in a world driven by algorithms and attention metrics. And in that rare unifying moment, the internet of fragmented, reactive, and polarized paused collectively. Across timelines, feeds, and comment threads, agreement emerged in a way that rarely happens online. For the first time in a long while, the audience recognized that some lessons transcend trends, that patience and integrity still command admiration, and that dignity, when wielded wisely, can outshine the loudest voices in the room. In the quiet aftermath, the noise of viral reactions began to settle, leaving a space for reflection. The moment in the courtroom had passed, but its lesson endured. Respect, it became clear, is not a relic of the past. It is not outdated, nor is it optional. To dismiss it is to dismiss the foundation of trust, of community, of society itself. Judge Caprio reminded the world that age carries experience, its insight and wisdom qualities far stronger than the fleeting bravado of youth. Age is not weakness. It is the currency of perspective, the armor of patience, and the measure of lives lived with care. Loudness and spectacle, once mistaken for authority, were revealed as temporary. A smirk or a viral post can capture attention, but it cannot command it. What endures is character. What resonates is dignity. Caprio's calm authority did not need to shout, to humiliate, or to perform. By simply holding his ground, he reframed the conflict, turning an insult into a demonstration of enduring principles. In that simple, deliberate restraint, the truth became visible. Strength is not in noise, but in measured action. Power is not in aggression, but in integrity. The TikToker, for all their confidence and online clout, had built influence on performance alone. They were untested in patience, unseasoned in consequence, and unprepared for a world that values substance over flash. In contrast, Caprio embodied a form of heroism not rooted in confrontation, but in consistency. He was not a hero who attacked or sought revenge. He was a symbol of resilience, of moral steadiness, of authority exercised with empathy. His triumph was quiet, but it carried far more weight than any viral moment could. The lesson extends beyond one courtroom, beyond one clip, beyond one generation. Dignity outlasts trends. Character beats clout. Calm, patient authority always wins. The world often rushes toward spectacle, yet the most powerful examples are those that endure in silence, that teach without shouting, that inspire without ego. Judge Caprio's presence, his unwavering commitment to fairness, his refusal to engage in theatrics, remind us that integrity is timeless. True influence comes not from being seen, but from being steadfast. And in a culture constantly chasing attention, the quiet strength of a principled life stands as a beacon. It teaches us that respect, patience, and wisdom are not just virtues, they are the measures by which lasting authority is earned. The words "old man" had entered the courtroom like a spark, intended to provoke, to humiliate, to dominate. But in the calm presence of Judge Caprio, that spark fizzled into revelation. The insult had failed not because it was unheard, but because it collided with a lifetime of integrity, patience, and quiet authority. He never raised his voice, never flinched, never retaliated. And yet, in that stillness, he won completely. This moment is more than a viral clip. It is a lesson for every generation, how we treat authority, how we respect elders, and how we measure true power. It reminds us that loudness does not equal strength, that spectacle cannot replace substance, and that dignity, when upheld, always leaves a mark far deeper than any smirk or trending hashtag. Share this story with others. Reflect on the ways society rewards attention over respect, flash over fortitude. Let it inspire discussions about what it means to lead, to influence, and to act with patience when provoked. Support dignity over arrogance. Recognize that integrity is not performative, is lived quietly, consistently, and without the need for applause, in a world screaming for attention. It is easy to forget that the calmest voices often carry the heaviest weight. Judge Caprio did not seek viral fame. He did not rely on drama. He simply held the line, embodying the values that endure when trends fade. And in that quiet strength, he reminds us all of something timeless. Respect, patience, and integrity are forces that outlast any moment of clout in the end. The lesson is simple, yet profound. Sometimes, the calmest voice leaves the deepest mark.